Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 306 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Eilon, CEO of Greek University. I am a speaker. I am a two-time author. Our second book is called From Letters to Leaders, Redefining New Member Education and Leveraging Belonging to Eliminate Hazing. So go and pick up that book today on Amazon. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, my mom was a registered nurse working in the ER her whole life. That's a really good thing when you're not feeling well or when you're not getting the support you need in a hospital, because she knows exactly how these hospitals work and how to get the results you want when the hospital is moving at a snail's pace. Now, it is not a good thing when you want to take the day off from school as a kid, because she would instantly tell you if you're really sick or not, okay? You weren't going to fool her at all. So today we have another great registered nurse with us. Kenya Lee is a registered nurse, artist, author, and a women's empowerment expert. She grew up in Detroit, Michigan, where the struggles of urban childhood and adolescence fueled her passion for helping young girls and women thrive in life. Her life journey to evolve onto emotional wellness was preceded by hardships that threatened her very ability to succeed in life. She survived many life challenges, including domestic violence and fetal maternal loss. Kenya has dedicated her life to empowering women to reach their full potential. Welcome to the show, Kenya.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here to talk with you this morning.
Well, listen, the pleasure is all mine. So thank you for what you do. And I'm super excited to talk to you because I think you have such great information to share with our student listeners around things like trauma, around things like even financial literacy, home ownership. I mean, you do it all. So I love everything that you've got going on. Now, let's just talk about nursing for a minute, because I have so much respect for today's nurses. You have over 23 years of experience as a registered nurse. What made you want to get into nursing?
Michael, nursing, I've always wanted to help, so I was that little girl that wanted to doctor on the dogs and, heal everybody in the house if they said they had a cold. My fondest memory is my great aunt. She would take me to church on Sundays, and it was an apostolic Baptist faith, and they had these really cool ladies there that wore these white uniforms and these beautiful white nursing hats. And I'm like, what is it that they're doing? I see them bringing water to the clergy, or, tissue to anybody that's upset. And they're like, they're nurses. And I'm like, nursing, huh? So from that point on, I was like, these are pretty cool people. So I can remember like 4 or 5 years, every Halloween, I wanted, what do you want to be this year, Kenya? I want to be a nurse. So I'm dressing up like a nurse for years in a row. So it's just been a natural thing for me from day one. I mean, honestly.
Yeah, that is such a cool story. I mean, it's so great that you knew so early on. There's so many college students out there that they still don't know what they want to do in life. So obviously you had a very clear direction on what your life mission is, which is cool. It's great. I just think, it's unique.
Well, with nursing, with nursing, the one good thing about nursing, I mean, you can go into all different sorts. You can do, like you talked about your mom with ER nursing, and I was a hardcore ER nurse for a while. Then you can, just work with mental health, with talking with people. It's so many different facets that you can help. So, I mean, nursing, I'm so grateful that I chose that as a career.
That's great. Now, you did overcome lots of challenges in life in terms of trauma. I mean, you survived all of these life challenges. We talked about domestic violence. We talked about fetal maternal loss. How did you get through these painful times of your life?
Well, Michael, with being a natural nurturer, coming from a nursing background, I always wanted to help, always wanted to nurture. And so I was that person. And a lot of times people will see that are not quite in the right place, as and will see you as prey. So unfortunately, I was involved in an abusive relationship that I was taken advantage of, and during that time I is when I suffered the miscarriage at 23 weeks. And at that time, I was at my lowest low, from a mental, physical, everything, emotional state. And me being that low is how I was able to go up, because, sometimes, those vulnerable states is just what you need. Unfortunately, it never feels good, but those vulnerable states is what you need to shine light to help you evolve. So I started researching and because that was so traumatic. That's the most traumatic thing that I've ever been through. So that vulnerability led me to start doing research and to try to understand what was going on with me. And so, in doing that, I developed some strategies and, worked at it. And that's how I overcame.
Wow. I mean, I love that you just started doing research and trying to figure this out on your own to try to make it a better path for you. And now you're going to be helping people all over the world. I mean, you wrote The Path to Emotional Greatness. I see that great book there in the background. I mean, have you thought about what success looks like for you and the new book going forward?
I have. I mean, and success for me is any young woman or woman, period, picking it up and it making a difference in their lives. Because I wrote this book with over 18 years of journal entries. So I'm a huge advocate for writing and creating. That was one of my methods of healing. And so I talk about the struggles and how I felt from day to day in dealing with this, and I give the strategies within the book. So a successful outcome is for a woman to get this and say, okay, I see how I can position myself to be better, to feel better, and to have a more productive, relationship, whether it be with their parents or, academically, just all around.
I love that it started with journal entries. I mean, I hear that a lot from people with trauma in their background, how helpful it is to journal. And obviously that worked out really well for you. And then it ultimately ended up in a book, which is great. For me, later in life, I ended up getting the master's degree. Now I'm in a doctorate program. And you have to write like all the time in these programs. I mean,
Yeah.
if anybody's been through anything like that, I mean, you're just constantly writing. And I have found that in kind of reflecting on some of the things that have happened in my life when I was young, to write it down, it really does feel like you're just taking a big burden off of you and you're putting it down on the page. And somehow in that process, the pen to paper, it just seems like you just feel so much better and a little bit lighter and a better perspective on all of these things. So I
Mhm.
commend you for doing what you did. And I think it would help other people who have trauma in their lives.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely, because, and I tell people that follow the strategy, so much is happening with, we use a phone, we use PCs all day. Pick up a pen,
Yeah.
because when we're using our hands, it connects with our brain, which in turns connects with our heart. And getting that stuff out, whether it's good, bad, whatever it may be. And it doesn't have to be paragraphs, just short excerpts on a daily basis, along with a few other things that are important. But journaling is a very, very key part. Getting those things out makes a huge difference. And to be able to go back and reflect is phenomenal, because it's like revisiting another person at one time or another.
I mean, you've obviously been very successful now in life. And so I'm wondering for all the listeners who are listening to you right now, I mean, that have gone through trauma in their past as well, how can trauma catapult you to triumph and success in life?
Well, nobody wants a traumatic situation. Nobody wants to feel hurt. Nobody wants the negativity. But the reality of it is that in life, we have contrast. We have good, we have bad, we have darkness, we have light. So when we have an opportunity to have a traumatic event or a challenging event, we have to use it as positive as possible. So believe it or not, trauma can kind of position you to go to a better place if you take the steps to go within and to examine what's happening, because you're so vulnerable at these times. And that's the vulnerability that allows us to really see what's really going on and really key in and hone in on what's happening, allows you to, elevate to your desired place of where you want to be.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, after going through the trauma that you went through, I would imagine that, you kind of talked about looking at it and it's almost like another person, right? And so I can imagine that really an imposter has been living your life in those times that you were going through that trauma. So, how do you reconnect with yourself? How do you obtain genuine self identity after going through something like that?
Well, it is a work in progress, in the book I talk about the three pivotal things to do, and that's journaling or creation and affirming. We must affirm, what it is that we want in our lives. And then meditation is the end piece, where we kind of shut down for just a little bit of time to kind of, clear everything out. Um, you know, when you are operating from a place of allowing another person's opinion of you to be your own, then ultimately you are, it's an imposter that is living, because it's not your true self. But if you do these steps, it allows you time to think and reflect and say, okay, what is it that makes me move? What makes me happy? Not the cool thing, not what's trending on social media, not what, people are saying I should do. What is really making me happy? What is going to make a difference in my life? What's going to make me a better person? And doing those things on a consistent basis allows you to get your true identity. And to pick up one, because for me, I wanted to be the cool girl. I wanted to do the things that were considered cool. And I didn't take any time to say, well, yeah, that's the cool stuff, but really, what makes you happy? How do you feel about this? Everything was exterior. But when we go inside and do the steps to connect with who we really are, then that's how, we get our true self identity. And that helps us in every facet of our lives.
I like that. I like that a lot. There's a lot of things that are going on right now with the economy. You start looking at inflation. You start looking at higher interest rates for things like auto loans and mortgages and things like that. So let's talk about financial stability for a moment. You actually talk about the use of inner awareness to build financial stability. Explain to our audience how we do that.
Absolutely. So with inner awareness, we have a firm understanding of our needs and our wants. We're not being moved emotionally by, some people are emotional spenders. It makes them feel better. If they've had a bad day, it makes them feel better to go and buy a pair of shoes or a purse, but when you have self-awareness, you understand the importance of what's going on with you, what's important, and what is just a desire and not a need. That trickles down to your finances as well. When you master that from yourself, from a self standpoint, then your finances, it falls right in line, because the same prioritization that you're taking with yourself, you're going to take that with everything else, including finances. So, distinguishing, oh, I want to go out and splurge or do this and that, but the budget is not there for me to do. Is this a wise decision? So that creates a foundation for us to determine what's going to be, the right path. And in, making sure that we're fundamentally set from a financial standpoint.
And you actually talk about turning this into a 30-day challenge of shifting self-awareness in order to meet all of your goals. What does that look like, a 30-day challenge of shifting self-awareness?
So with the 30-day challenge is to challenge the individual to do the 3 steps. And it doesn't take a lot of time. You're going to do these 3 steps in the morning and in the evening. So it's a check-in and a check-out.
Yeah.
So even if you take 2 minutes to write down, rather it be, it's totally up to the person, rather it be, I have a goal of finding a job this month, or I'm going on an interview. I want to do great on my interview, writing that down and then affirming. You go to the mirror, and I'm a firm believer in affirmation. So you got to affirm, look, I'm doing a great job. I'm doing the best. I am a good person. You have to affirm these things. We have to speak them into existence. And then finally, taking a moment of quiet time, to connect with yourself. And that's closing your eyes and having, no TV, no radio, anything like that on, doing that consistently. And people see, the women that I work with, they see a huge difference less than 30 days, but 30 days, you really see a difference in how you're feeling, how emotionally you're able to tap into some things that may have gone by, that if you weren't otherwise, honing in to doing these activities. So it gives you a greater perception, and that's just the first part, but consistency is the key.
I like it. I like that a lot. Let's talk a little bit about home ownership. I moved to Nashville, Tennessee in 2012, 10 years ago. And this was before Nashville was like the it city. Now everybody wants to move to Nashville. And so, looking back on it now, I wish I would have bought 2 homes, one to live in, one to rent out on Airbnb, because the market has just exploded in Nashville. And so now it's like whatever you paid for it, double it. And that's what it's worth today. So, talk to our audience. I think this is really important that we talk about this because college students are going to be looking to rent an apartment after graduation. Okay. You launched the Detroit Women's Home Ownership Program, which was designed to assist mothers, to single mothers, to achieve financial literacy and also home ownership. What are the benefits of owning a home instead of renting?
Oh my goodness. The benefits are huge, Michael, as you probably know. And I think a lot of times people veer away from it because they say, oh, the responsibility is so intense. What if this happens? What if that happens? But the reality of it is it positions a person to have so much more financial strength in terms of, owning versus renting. And, it doesn't have to be your dream home. You don't have to go out and say, oh, I'm going to get this 8-bedroom home with 3 bathrooms and this and that. No, just starting out with something small, that money that you're paying into that mortgage. And even if you get a non-traditional mortgage, if someone wants to, sell from a land contract or a rent to own, that's a great way for, college students after college to get into home ownership. But it positions you to have that money that you're paying yourself as opposed to paying someone else, So I am a firm believer that, owning a home, and especially for legacy, for the women that I work with here in Detroit, they have children. They don't, a lot of them don't want to move every 3 or 4 years, depending on what happens to the house. Things could come up. The owner wants to sell and then they have to move. This gives a feeling of community for the family, a feeling of, same school systems. There are a lot of components to, making this a very positive thing to do. And I am a firm believer, even if you start out very small, grabbing something, because 9 times out of 10, it's not going to depreciate, it's going to appreciate. So you're going to make money in the long term.
Yeah, in the long term, you're always going to make money. I mean, short term, anything can happen, but long
Right.
term, you're going to make money on that investment. And I agree with you completely. Even if you just start small, you have to get in the game. Like if you're on the sidelines, you're not in the game. And the
Exactly.
sidelines is basically renting and throwing your money down the toilet every single month. And
Hmm.
so here, you're at least getting in the game. And just like you said, it doesn't have to be like your ideal home. I mean, the first home that I had, I mean, it's nothing like the home that I have today. It's okay, right? But you
Hmm.
got to get in the game to take advantage of the market. And too many people are sitting on the sidelines and they need to get in the game, even if it's something small and it's not your forever home. That's okay. All of that
It's
is okay.
okay.
Yeah,
And you
that's
can
fine.
take your time. You can take your time and
That's
do a
right.
little fixing as you go. It's not, and so many things. I'm gonna tell you, Michael, I've learned so much and as far as doing things around the house, YouTube is great. They
Yeah.
teach you so much, things that may look overwhelming, like, oh my God, how am I going to repair this door or whatever? You look at YouTube and it tells you exactly how to do it, and so you can get a fixer upper and, let that kind of build you and give you some foundation, as opposed to just giving the money to someone else they're going to benefit and
That's
not you.
right. That's right. Kenya, I'm going to call you the next time I need some home repair advice because
Okay.
I'm not
Okay.
so
I
good at
got
it.
you.
I'm going to call you. So, talk to us about Faith in Girls. Talk to us about the online workshops that you offer. What would somebody learn in these workshops that you offer in Faith in Girls?
So Faith in Girls was created in 2012 in Los Angeles, where we were on the road going to, various girls and boys clubs, high schools, and teaching inner awareness, you know, um, helping people to kind of connect from within. But now we've redesigned it to be online. So a person that would come and go through a workshop of ours would first, learn techniques of how to tap within to elevate them from an emotional standpoint. And, even if you feel great and everything's going great, everybody wants to climb the mountain, so to speak, so there's always room for improvement. So you will learn how to tap within, how important community building is. I think that that's a very, very huge topic that everyone should be interested in. Is we can't live alone, and so we teach skills on how to, despite, oppositions and, how your your feelings or whatever are on political issues, how to come together and have a great community. And then ultimately financial literacy, because I'm a firm believer that, we must know and understand how to balance our sheet, and balance what we have, our income coming in, and do that in a smart way, looking after the credit score, making sure we're paying things timely. All those things are encompassed in the workshops that we provide at Faith in Girls.
That's great. I love that you're providing all that information. I mean, even in colleges, they don't talk about personal finance or any of that. People are just kind of thrown into the real world and they're like, all right, you figure it out. But it's like, wait a minute, like I need skills like to be able to balance a checkbook and to be able to, put together a budget. So that way I'm actually meeting whatever goals I want to have in place in terms of saving for the future, for a home, like you talked about and all of those things. But like, nowhere there's no place to go to get that. So I'm so glad that you're offering that with Faith in Girls. I think that's just incredible work that you're doing. So I just want to say thank you for the work that you do. It's important.
Thank you. I'm so, I'm eternally grateful to be in a position where I can teach,
Yeah.
and just show people and show other women how, despite whatever they've gone through, or the lack of resources or what have you, it doesn't stop you from having a successful and productive life. So I'm really, really grateful to be able to do this.
Yeah, you're definitely changing lives in a positive way. So that's fantastic. And that's going to affect a whole generation that comes after it with their kids and their kids and et cetera. So that's fantastic. Now, I do get to the Detroit, Michigan area quite often. There's a lot of really good colleges and universities in the area. And I love good food. I don't know about you. I get the sense that you like have a really good meal too. So I think we
Yeah,
could definitely hang and bond over a love of really good food. So,
absolutely.
do you have a favorite restaurant in Detroit that I should go and check out?
I've got a couple
All
actually, Mike.
right, all
I
right.
can't tell you just one. I got a couple. So my Italian spot I love is
Oh,
Andiamo's. And
oh,
they have a couple locations, but my favorite is in downtown Detroit.
yes.
And I mean authentic Italian. Uh, I mean to die for, you know. Now, on the other hand, when I want something a little bit more comforting and just soothing, Detroit soul, because I love soul food, you know.
Yes, yes.
And you're talking about the best macaroni and cheese, greens, any protein you want. I mean, it's awesome. So
Yeah.
those two are my go-to. I can't tell you one. I may be able to tell you three, but I'll definitely tell you those two.
Well, those restaurants are grateful that you mentioned it. We want to keep those good restaurants open in Detroit and running and keeping to feed the people. And I love that you love pasta too, because we'll just get all that pasta going and we'll be in good shape for sure. So those are some great recommendations. I love it. Now, if our listeners, if they want to connect with you about the book, they want to talk to you about home ownership, the workshops that you offer, where should they go to connect with you?
Okay, so in terms of the workshops, they can go to www.faithandgirls.org. And that gives a whole overview of what we're providing for workshops and so forth, and put their information in there. And as far as the book is concerned, it's on Amazon, and it's ready on Amazon from um the e book as well as the paperback. So they can just type in The Path to Egypt or Emotional Greatness, Yielding to Personal Transformation, and it'll pop up on Amazon.
I love it. The path to emotional greatness. Kenya Lee, you are a special woman. I really appreciate all the work that you're doing there in Detroit. You're doing wonderful, wonderful work. And I hope everybody goes and picks up your book. Just look for it under Kenya Lee on Amazon and you will find it. And what can I say? Thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom with our listeners today.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a great time.
Well, good. I appreciate that. I know our listeners appreciate that. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this talk with Kenya Lee and you enjoyed learning a little bit more about emotional greatness, make sure that you like this interview. Make sure that you share it on social media with other students, with other people in your network. And we hope to see you on another episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us, and we're going to see you next time.